And so for that, then we can, that will help to recite the Refuge and Bodhisattva prayer. I take refuge in time enlightened in the Buddha, Dharma, Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. So, do you have the short Lamrim practice that we were doing? Doji Chang Lozang Jinpawan. My mum gave me a manila envelope filled with all sorts of things she'd been saving since I was little. She had one for each of us. It had some school reports. I must have what's the word for it? But anyway, I had forgotten how bad my reports were. One or two subjects, not too bad. Usually, if they were good, the teachers were kind of amazed. Mostly, it was like quite disappointing. There's one that I always remember, though. Somehow, something my mum reminds me of, has reminded me from time to time over the years. It's the English teacher who said that Stephen seems to delight in getting the wrong end of the stick. I think I still suffer from that a bit. Anyway, how are we? How are we getting on? Do you find it? Okay, so never mind. We'll keep going with this text. Six perfections. Actually, what I'll do is what I did send you, Michael, was a short image. Yeah, I emailed it to you that you might be able to screen share. In the meantime, I'll read it out. You could screen share or chat. I don't know which is best. Maybe both.
Just a second, I have to forward it to my other mail.
Huh?
Just a second, I have to forward it to my other mail, and then I can screen share.
Okay. So this is from a teaching by Geshe Jampa Gyatso, who I've mentioned before, I'm sure, because he was for many years the main teacher at Lama Tsongkhapa Institute in Italy, near Pamaya, not that far from Pisa. I can't remember the name of the region. Anyway, so what he said was talking about the six perfections, which is what we're on now, mainly, really. The perfections are definitely six in number, which are generosity, morality, patience, choice, effort, concentration, and wisdom. Their order is also definite. There's a sort of fixed order. There's something fixed about the order. And so this is what he says about it. So, well, anyway, well, he says that. So I mean, he's already said them in order. And then he says it's going to be explained later, but he actually has his own explanation. I think when he says the reason for this will be explained later, he means Lama Tsongkhapa will explain it later. But for the time being, he says, for example, since generosity is easier to practice than morality, we first engage in the practice of generosity. Then, on that basis, you practice morality. So then, having practiced morality, we need to eliminate anger, which is, short-temperedness, by practicing patience. So then, having developed patience, we might still be lazy and therefore need to develop our effort. So then we have the choice effort, the fourth one. Then, having developed effort, we need to set our mind on an object. We need to set our mind on an object, whereby we develop concentration. Then, while one part of the mind is set on the object, another part of the mind does this analytical meditation on the reality of phenomena. So that's why, the wisdom comes last. So there's quite a lot on this here about why there are 6 perfections, no more, no less, exactly 6, and also about why why they're expressed in that order. Anyway, so I just thought I'd mention that. Then, meanwhile, where we got to?
Steve, I have that up if you want to. Do you want me to screen share or save it for next time?
Maybe, how about sharing it? What I mean is putting it in the chat, so anybody can download it if they want to. Okay. If I can get to where we finished. So it's the 10th, yeah. So I think that here. Actually, this is still I find a bit puzzling, but I think we'll have to say something about it. So for the book, we're on page 237, and I wanted to read this quote from the sutra again, the sutra teaching the Tathagata's inconceivable secret, whatever that is. So it says, child of the lineage. So he's talking to one of his disciples. Child of the lineage. Sometimes a Bodhisattva will be addressed in that way. Child of lineage, it is like this. A fire burns because it has a cause. If the cause is absent, it subsides. So when there's fuel, the fire will burn. If there's no fuel, or once the fuel is burnt up, then the fire stops. So likewise, a mind blazes due to an observed object. If the observed object is absent, the mind subsides. This is quite an interesting thing to say. I mean, first of all, using the word blaze, you often think of like blaze in relation, sometimes blaze in relation to wisdom, because wisdom burns up the darkness of ignorance. Sometimes if you get very angry, it feels like maybe a fire in the mind. But really all he seems to be saying is that as simply as it's as simple as that. If there's an object, then the mind will engage in that object. When that object is not present, then the mind won't engage in that object. Something like that. And there's something practical about that. I don't know how much of it is what this sutra is trying to say, but looking on the positive side, then if you haven't got if you're going to meditate, you have to have an object to meditate on. Meditate on. You haven't got anything to meditate on, then how do you meditate? You can say like that. Then the other thing is that I'm pretty sure that this is something we talked about quite a bit earlier in the text when it was talking about the way the mental afflictions work. Yeah, mental affliction. because it talks about the different conditions, some of which are yes, conditions depending upon which the different mental afflictions arise. So some of them have to be there, some of them just if they're there, they make things worse, kind of thing. And if you study that subject, then you'll see what I mean. But the point is that I think maybe something I read by His Holiness, not in an actual oral teaching, but he mentioned, because this is something I can't remember if it's 6 conditions or 7 conditions, but anyway, it comes from the Abhidharma Kosha by Vasubandhu, and His Holiness mentions that that in a way, because one of the conditions is the object, and if you think about it, it makes sense, because like you can be just sort of like walking around, just doing this and that, maybe doing your job, whatever. Then your mind goes to a particular object that makes you feel angry or whatever. I mean, all sorts of, different sorts of objects produce different sorts of effect in your mind when you turn your mind to them, right? And so, people say, oh, just don't think about it. And there's some practical value in that advice, actually. By keeping your mind away from a particular object, then that object uh, doesn't harm your mind so much. Now, if you can do it, and it's not always easy to do, but if you can do it, they say count to 10 and all that kind of thing, all those things. But also, you might find that whether it's, let's say, to pick two of the most common ones, almost like the ones at the bottom of everything, like grasping attachment towards things that you really like and you really want, or anger towards the one, people that you see as like your enemy, somebody who's trying to harm you, somebody you really don't like. So you might find that being in the presence of that person, you just can't help yourself. The attachment arises, or the anger arises. So actually, even though it's not a final solution, a temporary solution that gives you space to work with the problem with your own mind, is just removing yourself from the situation, not going where that person is, avoiding that person. So then things become a bit more manageable, and then it's not necessarily the case that straight away you're going to be able to work with it. You still might have to be careful about that, but it does make it easier. Anyway, that's my point. It does make it easier when the object is not actually there. Anyway, that's an idea I've heard, and I think it makes sense, and it seems to be also what Vasubandhu meant. So you get a little bit of a flavor of that here as well. Likewise, the mind blazes due to an observed object. So it just means when there's an object there for it to focus on, for your mind to focus on, then it will blaze. Otherwise, the mind subsides. So then he goes on to say, therefore, the Bodhisattva skilled in means knows how to completely extinguish observed object by means of the thoroughly pure perfection of wisdom. So you would think, well, you might even just think, well, what is that supposed to mean, skilled in means? But sometimes, I don't know why, but sometimes this expression, skilled in means, is another way of saying somebody who has wisdom. Yeah, because there's one teaching, and it might of the Buddha, and it might come up later in the text actually, where where the Buddha says that somebody who somebody who's skilled in means, which means has the wisdom. For them, the progress in their practice is much more powerful. Whereas if you don't have the skill in means, then actually no matter how much you practice, there's a limit to how far you can get. So anyway, so therefore the Bodhisattva skilled in means knows how to, and it makes sense here, doesn't it? So the Bodhisattva skilled in means knows how to completely extinguish observed objects by means of the thoroughly pure perfection of wisdom. But he does not completely extinguish observed objects with respect to the root of virtue. That's actually quite interesting. So he or she, the Bodhisattva who's skilled in means, who has wisdom as a resource, is able to extinguish observed objects, but doesn't extinguish observed objects with the roots of virtue. That's actually quite a lot to think about there. So given that in those first few lines is talking about the mind blazing when there's an observed object and subsiding when there isn't one, where he's not specifying which kind of mind, just any mind, right? Any mind is going to blaze when there's an object and it'll subside when there isn't the object. How would that work in the case of a positive state of mind? Could it be like, for example, if you don't think about the suffering in the world, then the compassion isn't going to arise. If you don't watch the news, you're not so aware of the suffering, and then the compassion doesn't arise. Okay, so knows how. Yeah, so anyway. So therefore, the Bodhisattva skill means knows how to completely extinguish observed objects by means of the thoroughly pure perfection of wisdom. So that could mean, probably means that with the wisdom, then you're able to see the ultimate nature of whatever object of mind that you're focused on. And so in the case of a mental affliction, that can be very useful. So and it's not like it's something, in a way, it's a very advanced practice, to be able to use this kind of wisdom, understanding the ultimate nature of reality, but it's not beyond us to use it to some degree, according to our understanding. So, and this is something that Gyumi Khyentse Rinpoche and Lobsang Jampa always used to encourage us to do in his teachings on the development of wisdom, which is you start asking yourself, what is this I that's getting so upset? That kind of thing, there seems whenever we think I, there seems to be we do exist, but that I, we think that I, if you look for that I in your body, your mind, you can't find it. So what kind of a thing is an I that exists, but you can't find it anywhere in your body and mind? However, so whatever, by thinking that way, it changes things. How much it changes it, by which I mean, how palpable will the change be, would depend a lot on, like just the intensity of the mental affliction, also the strength of your wisdom. It would depend upon those things. But think particularly if you're, like maybe after the situation, like you got angry and you're wondering why you got angry, and you're maybe interested in preventing the anger from sort of like festering inside you. So you want to be able to let go of it, and letting go of it not just by ignoring it, suppressing it, but letting go with wisdom. So thinking about, where is this I? What about the person also that I got angry with? They're the same actually. You think my enemy, or what the name of the person? It also seems to be there's some, whoever it is there, looks like it's something there that you could point out, but actually when you look in the body, look in their mind, also they can't be found. So thinking that way can be very helpful. Well, anyway, I would say it's very helpful. It's really worth trying. So that's how wisdom would what was it? Completely extinguish the observed object, right? But so then, what about in the case of a positive state of mind, like compassion, loving kindness? Would you want to extinguish the object in that case? I mean, really, when you wouldn't want to extinguish extinguish it is when your wisdom is taking you in a sort of like nihilist kind of direction, where for you it feels like if the sentient beings and their suffering can't be found, then there's no sentient beings, there's no suffering, so nothing to worry about. Otherwise, in general, the stronger your wisdom, the stronger your compassion is going to be for various reasons. I would say mainly because the stronger your wisdom is, the less likely your compassion is going to be somehow polluted in a way by self-interest, grasping your own attachment to your own personal needs and so on. Selfishness, in other words. Hmm. And the other reason why it's the more wisdom you have, the stronger your compassion is going to be, and loving kindness and so on. Particularly with the compassion, the stronger your wisdom, the deeper your insight into just why sentient beings are suffering. Because according to the Buddhist teachings, suffering comes out of not understanding, misunderstanding the true nature of reality, our own reality, a reality of people around us, things around us, and so on, the world that we live in. So you have your understanding of suffering even changes, because you begin to see that, well, actually the main problem any of us experiences or has is not understanding reality. So then, instead of your compassion being limited to people that are experiencing some kind of like manifest kind of pain and suffering in that sense, unhappiness, you can also feel compassion for people who are healthy and wealthy and so on. Hmm. So anyway, maybe I'm just trying to avoid the problem here. So anyway, but he or she does not completely extinguish observed objects with respect to the roots of virtue. So there it's since it's talking about skill in means, being skilled in means, and if we think, as it looks like it's saying here, the skill in means having the wisdom, being able to use wisdom. they do not completely extinguish observed objects with respect to the roots of virtue. So it's interesting, actually, because you see, no matter how much we say that the more wisdom you have, the the stronger your compassion is going to be. I'm not denying that, but still, if you, I mean, it's our own limitation. Yeah, when you think of the suffering of others, you think of sentient beings and their suffering, and then at the same time, you you know, use the wisdom side and think about, how those sentient beings also can't be found, just like I can't be found, and so on. In that, look for them in their body and mind, and so on. You do that kind of analysis. I challenge you to be able to feel the same feeling, the same compassion, because there's just like such a, it's really quite difficult to get this. And I'm not talking about this from the point of view of my own experience or something, but except that for the experience that it is difficult, but also that everybody's always saying this. It's so difficult. The one thing that's really difficult to get is how things are just as real in the face of wisdom, but just don't exist as they appear. Anyway, the point is that meditating on compassion and then at the same time trying to meditate on the wisdom with respect to the same sentient beings and the same suffering that they're experiencing, it's like the wisdom, the compassion becomes weaker in terms of your own experience. That seems a little bit contradictory, doesn't it? But it's just, yeah, it's just I think it just takes a lot of time, a lot of effort over a long period before being able to meditate on wisdom doesn't somehow, in terms of your experience, your lived experience, undermine the feeling of compassion. Yeah, it's quite strange, really. So maybe that is why the Bodhisattva skilled in means does not completely extinguish observed objects with respect to the roots of virtue. Maybe it's maybe we need to understand the Bodhisattva who's maybe a little bit of a beginner Bodhisattva, whose wisdom isn't so developed. They would be careful to use the wisdom with the virtuous minds and the virtuous objects. So then he goes on to say, he or she does not allow the observed objects for mental afflictions to arise, but places the mind on the observed objects of the perfections. Can you hear that? Yeah. He does not allow the observed objects of mental afflictions to arise. So, anyway, keeping the mind away from the objects of mental afflictions. I mean, this is general. This is general practice. Like when you're trying to develop concentration. Calm abiding, shine, shamatha. Then what? You although in general they do say that you can focus your mind on anything. You take anything as the object that you're developing concentration on, because the main point of developing concentration is to work with the factors of laxity and excitation, keeping the mind clear, kind of thing, keeping the mind away from any kind of any kind of other object that would distract you from your chosen object. But generally, you wouldn't choose an object that's going to make attachment arise, right? So you would, well, anyway, the tradition in Buddhism is to choose an object which is going to bring benefit, even if you fail to develop calm abiding. Like, for example, so focusing your mind on an image of the Buddha. So, according to the teachings, simply by focusing your mind on the Buddha, you're creating merit. So even if you don't get anywhere with developing concentration, you would have all the benefit from focusing your mind on the Buddha anyway, and creating merit. And also, it's meant to be very useful, very useful to be able to remember the Buddha when you're dying, because then that will help you to have a mind of refuge, and then having the mind of refuge, then that means that there's two possibilities when you die, either to go up or down. So you wouldn't go down, you go up. A good birth, in other words, you make sure you had a good birth. That kind of thing. So mindfulness of the Buddha. That kind of thing, that kind of thing. So choosing a useful object to meditate on still gives you lots of choice. So in that case, you would, you wouldn't choose an object of the mental afflictions. And also when you're focusing your mind on your chosen object, then you would, one of your jobs would be to prevent your mind from becoming distracted away to objects of the mental afflictions. So anyway, in general, this is saying, in general, they would not allow the observed objects for mental afflictions to rise. I think is another way of saying wouldn't allow their minds to be distracted to the objects of the mental afflictions. In other words, they wouldn't allow the mental afflictions to arise. That's the main point that it's making. But instead would turn their mind to the objects of the perfections. In other words, I mean, really, with the perfections, that could be anything could be the observed object there. Remember, observed object just means the object that your mind is focused on. Could be anything, but anyway, again, the main thing is they would mainly be concerned with meditating on the perfections. Then they would also individually analyze the observed object that is emptiness, but look upon the observed object that is all sentient beings with great compassion. So sort of like a summary there. In terms of in terms of the wisdom side and meditating on emptiness, in terms of what they call the method side, all the other factors like loving kindness, compassion, and so on. So they would also cultivate as strongly as possible minds of compassion, loving kindness, and so on, observing all the sentient beings. Okay? Yeah. Okay. So then I think there's not much more to say about the rest of this chapter. It's sort of basically making the same point. Lama Tsongkhapa explaining it. So you must differentiate between statements that there is an observed object and statements that there is no observed object. Likewise, the bonds of the mental afflictions and apprehending signs, which is like, grasping at true existence, that kind of thing, need to be loosened, whereas the ropes of the trainings need to be tightened. So this almost like takes you back to the, this idea that whether you're tied up with rope or you're tied up with gold chains, either way you're tied up. But what this is saying is, there's the ropes that tie you up in a way that harms you, so you want to loosen those. But then there's the ropes that tie you up in a good way, and that which is the trainings, in other words, Bodhisattva practices. So those need to be tightened. Therefore, being restrained by the trainings and being bound by the apprehension of signs are not the same.
nor is loosening one's guarding and restraint the same as loosening the bonds of apprehending a self. Therefore, the meaning of destruction and self-liberation and so forth need to be examined well. I'm not quite sure what point he was making there. Usually self-liberation, ramdrul, then they talk about, by meditating on wisdom, meditating on emptiness, then the mental afflictions become self-liberated. It means like they become loosened naturally. Then the way the master Kamalashila negates mental inattention, he does not negate the meditation where the mind is placed within the view that has determined the meaning of the ultimate mode of being and settled single-pointedly on that without attending to anything else. However, he does negate that meditation on emptiness consists of a mere stabilization in which the mind is left without conceiving anything, without placing it on the meaning determined by the view, the ultimate mode of being. This is the same for Mantrayana and Paramitayana. What similarities and differences exist between the two systems with regard to analyzing with the wisdom of fine investigation and maintaining one's meditation will be explained below. So right towards the end of the text, Lama Tsongkhapa does talk about that, but not a huge amount. Okay, so I think a couple of minutes to you try to digest that a bit. Think about that a little bit. Try to make a conclusion, especially a conclusion that will help you in some way, either daily life or maybe with your learning, your study. According to this book we're on, we're in chapter 18, page 239. Explaining the actual stages of training in the precepts. And just keep in mind, I think for the most part in this teaching, in particularly this translation, he uses the precepts. Basically, it means the Bodhisattva practices. Okay. So this is mainly talking about the Mahayana in general. Then towards the end, the Vajrayana, sort of talking a little bit about that. So for the Mahayana in general, first of all, you've got developing the wish to train in the precepts of the Bodhisattvas, then taking the vows, Bodhisattva vows, once you have that wish, and then how to train in the vows once you've taken them. Yeah, I think that's okay. So wanting to take the Bodhisattva vows, then taking the Bodhisattva vows, and then what you're going to do after you've taken them. So first of all, the wish to train in them, wish to take the vows, basically. It's inappropriate to study the precepts of the Vinaya and Tantra without taking the respective vows, but these present precepts are different. So yeah, for some reason, I feel as if we talked about this before, but anyway, doesn't harm to go over it again. Yeah, for some reason in the with the Vinaya, so that means, I think with the lay vows, there's no secret in that. Everybody knows what those are, but they're not supposed to be kept secret. I never heard of that. But with the monastic vows, so for the novices and for the full ordination, then for some reason, for whatever reason, they are not. You don't get to study them before taking them. You'd think that that would be an obvious thing to do, but anyway, that's the tradition. And likewise with the tantric vows, but with the Bodhisattva vows, you're actually encouraged to learn them first and find out about them, and then the idea being that you'll really want to, what's call it, take the Bodhisattva vows as like how you're going to lead your life. Yeah, I think put it that way. That's what I want to do with my life. Take the Bodhisattva vows and then do my best to keep the from avoiding the root downfalls and also the secondary ones. Try as best as possible, and then when I make mistakes, purifying and so on. Just keep trying to get better and better. That's what I want to do. So you have that wish, and then you actually take the vows, and then you have to keep them afterwards. And it comes down to basically practicing 6 perfections. Although if you look at the 18 root Bodhisattva downfalls, they don't actually, it's not like there's, what is it, 18, right? So it's not like 3 for each perfection or something like that. But they're all actually in this one text I saw, I think by Dodokchen, Nyingma Lama. He said, let me think. He said that all of the Bodhisattva vows come down to one, which is to oppose self-cherishing. Oppose selfishness. So anyway, yeah, but these present precepts are different. First, you come to understand the precepts so that your mind stream is purified. I don't know about purified, but anyway, so that your mind becomes inspired, really. Then if you feel the enthusiasm for holding them, in other words, if you have that feeling, like really happy feeling at the thought of taking those vows, then the vows are imparted. They're given to you, imparted to you, given to you anyway. And they will be very stable if you bring them to mind as an object after having understood the precepts, develop a heartfelt desire to train in them, and then take the vows. That's why this is a good method. So, again, I'd have thought you would say the same about the Vinaya vows, or Pratimoksha vows, they call them, vows of individual liberation. And Tantra, you learn about them, then you think, wow, that sounds really great, I want to do that. Then you take it, and it's like in the full knowledge of what it is that you're taking on, and you'd think that would give some particular kind of energy to your practice. You knew what you were getting yourself into, and sort of walked into it with eyes wide open. But in any case, with the Bodhisattva vows, it is like that you find out about it and it's like, wow, that sounds really great. Although a lot of people, when they learn about the Bodhisattva vows, then the reaction is, oh, I don't think I can keep these. So we all somehow at a certain point need to come to the understanding that although ideally you keep all of them without breaking any of them ever, and maybe it wouldn't do to be breaking all of them all the time, but the fact is that probably everybody, when they take the Bodhisattva vows, even if you know them inside out and you really want to you really do want to keep them purely, still it's a bit difficult, to be perfect right from the beginning. So there are ways of purifying. So one does need to understand that. You really want to. What you really want to do is to take those vows and keep them as best you can, and then you're also willing. It's sort of implied you're willing to find out how to purify and also to purify as best you can. So Lama Tsongkhapa says it's a really great. That's a really great way of doing things. Learn the vows, then take them. Then, as for taking the Bodhisattva vows, so he says, in my commentary on the ethics chapter of Asanga's Bodhisattva levels, so Asanga you might have heard of, he's the one that practiced Maitreya for many years, and then eventually, was able to talk with Maitreya, and Maitreya took him to this Pure Land and gave him all sorts of teachings and sent him back with some texts that have become really important in the tradition, studied, very much in the monasteries and so on. Basis for Lama Tsongkhapa's Stage of the Path teaching. So he wrote his own texts also though. So one of them is called the Bodhisattva levels. Bodhisattva Bhumi, Bodhisattva levels, Bodhisattva ground. And so so obviously then one of the chapters of that book is called the ethics chapter. That's probably Sujingilyu. So I usually say morality. Some people say ethics, some people say ethical conduct. I'm okay with morality. I don't know, some people don't like to say morality. So anyway, there's a morality or ethics chapter, and then Lama Tsongkhapa, and that must be about the Bodhisattva vows, taking them and what they are and so on. So Lama Tsongkhapa wrote a commentary to that, and it's called Janju Sempe Shungnam. So he says, the translator's got a note. I think I saw a note. Yeah, I thought, this note 96 at the top of the next page. So he mentions that it's called something like the broad pathway of the Bodhisattvas. But actually, I don't think it's translated into English, the text. So the title has been translated, but the actual text hasn't been yet, as far as I know. Well, I mean, maybe it has. No. I think maybe the Bodhisattva levels has been. I'm not sure. I think it might have been. But I don't think that Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary has. So in my commentary on the ethics chapter of Sanga's Bodhisattva levels, I already extensively determined how to first take the vows, how to then guard against the root downfalls and infractions that are misdeeds, and how to restore the vows if they have degenerated. Therefore, since the vows certainly do need to be looked into, in other words, studied before they're taken, so consult that source to understand these points. So anyway, he's not going to explain it here. He's going to explain it somewhere else in a book that isn't available to us. But there are books that teach the Bodhisattva vows written. Probably you've got more idea of them than I have. There's one based on a commentary by Chanda Gomin. That's a nice one. Does anybody know a good book for Bodhisattva vows? You want to find one by a somebody who knows what they're talking about. A translation by somebody who knows how to translate. That's the thing. Okay. So then training in the vows after taking them. So this has got 3 points. You've got the foundation of the precepts. So this is where there's a difference between precepts and the Bodhisattva practice, because as we're going to see, when he says foundation of the precepts, it turns out that that's the 6 perfections. Then how the precepts are contained in it. How the precepts are contained in it, in that foundation. So how all of the Bodhisattva practices are included in the 6 perfections. And then the stages of training. In other words, how do you practice those 6 perfections? So for the foundation of the precepts, although there are infinite clear divisions, actually, I think here there's this word sawa in Tibetan, which most of the time it does mean clear, but it also is used as an example, used to translate. Sorry, it's another word that is used instead of something we translate as like an instance or an example, like an what do you call it? So I don't know. Each of us would be an instance or an example of human beings. So that you've got this universal or generality, which is human beings. So each of us would be an instance, a particular of that, of that class. So anyway, all this is saying is, although there are infinite clear divisions when grouped together by, infinite clear divisions when grouped together by type, all the precepts of Bodhisattvas are contained in the 6 perfections. So it's like saying, when it comes to the Bodhisattva precepts, there's just no limit to them, but they can all be summarized into the 6 groups, which are the 6 perfections. Therefore, the 6 perfections are the great synopsis that condenses or includes all the essential points of the Bodhisattva's path. So, yeah, I mean, it's true. It's, you read the Bodhisattva, not Maitreya's, Shantideva's Bodhisattva. I mean, there's a huge amount of advice in there. And really, you could say all of his advice is a Bodhisattva precept. But all of it is included in the 6 perfections. If you have to put each of one of them into the 6 perfections, one of the 6 perfections, they all fit in there. There wouldn't be any left over. Okay. So that's, I mean, if you think about it, that's quite a big thing to say. And we just have to take Lama Tsongkhapa's word for it for the moment. Otherwise, I don't know how we can do that. Maybe read the whole of the Bodhisattva and see how each, idea that Shantideva mentions is included in one or the other of the 6 perfections. Who knows? So then how the precepts are contained in it. So actually he's kind of got an answer here. So this is 2 points. The main point, the main topic, which is the specific number of perfections, and a second discussion of their specific order. So talking about why there are specifically 6 perfections, no more, no less. And then why this particular order? Okay. So the main topic is the specific number of perfections. I hope you'll all find this interesting. It is quite interesting, really, because when you sort of go into the 6 perfections in this way, analyzing in a way that you wouldn't normally do, you understand them better. So it's useful. So let's see. The Blessed One, so the Buddha, made just a synopsis of the six perfections, which seems to be saying, the Buddha himself mentioned the six perfections, but only in summary. It's a bit surprising, isn't it? But anyway, no problem, because Maitreya, who is the holy regent of the victors, it should say victor, really, not plural, because he's Maitreya. I mean, according to the story of the Buddha's life, he was in the Tushita, right? Pure Land, I think, yeah. Garden like Tushita, yeah, in the Tushita Pure Land. And then he saw that the time was right for him to come into the world. He'd promised that he would a long time ago. So this was the time when he had to go into the world and do his thing of, the 12 deeds, doing the 12 deeds. And so he was the king in Tushita, and so he had to hand his crown over to the one who's going to be coming after him, which was Maitreya. And so even though actually that means he's the king in Tushita, it talks about him being the regent because Gyaltsab, it's like, so you're going to have to be king in my place. So although it says regent, the Tibetan word Gyaltsab, the Gyal in Gyaltsab is king, and then sub means substitute. So you're going to have to, be the king in my place. So that's what it means, to say that he's the holy regent of the victors, the victor, the victorious one, the Buddha. That's one epithet for the Buddha, right? The victorious one, the one who has achieved victory over in the battle against the four Maras, the four demonic forces, like the Mara of the aggregates and so on. So then Maitreya established certainty in them by elucidating, as they had been intended, the essential points among the reasons for their formulation. In other words, he taught the six perfections in detail according to the Buddha's own intention. They account for how their number was specified. Well, anyway, so Maitreya's teaching explains how their number was. He says specified. I don't think this is very good. The word, what the word means is it's fixed number. Six. No, if you had five, then something would be missing. If you had seven, like it's redundant. It would be redundant. There's just the six. So whenever you see this specified, it means it's fixed. Therefore, when you find certainty about this in a way that captivates the mind, you will hold the practice of the six perfections as supreme instruction. So the number of perfections is specified, fixed as six from the point of view. So he mentioned six points of view from which you can see that it's exactly six. And what he's saying is, if you understand that, then it'll kind of like really, you'll feel really attracted to the practice of the six perfections, if you can understand why they're exactly six. So six in terms of, or from the point of view of high status. So high status means like being born normally, so mundo. Generally speaking, when we talk about high status, it means a birth of high status, like as a human being or as a god. Yeah. Then, from the point of view, there's so there there have to be 6 from the point of view of being able to get a birth of high status, but not just any birth of high status, but one that's going to guarantee that we'll be able to keep going life after life. Then in terms of the accomplishment of the 2 welfares, you need exactly these 6 in order to be able to accomplish the 2 welfares, which means your own welfare, the welfare of others. And that, by the way, is an expression that's often used to refer to the truth body of an enlightened being, which basically means, you know, your own mind and all of your qualities of mind. So when you have those qualities, you can imagine, you know, like, I mean, I could be completely enlightened, right? But if I don't say anything or do anything, what's the use? On the other hand, you know, just doing and saying something when you don't have the inner qualities, that's also not so much use. So on the basis of having all the inner qualities of enlightenment, then you're going to act in the world mainly by teaching. And that's what really benefits sentient beings. What would, you know, benefit sentient beings isn't just that you're enlightened, but out of your enlightenment, you teach, you show them the way. So that's why it's called, so that's why the form body of the Buddha, in other words, the physical manifestation, besides the, you know, the mental, you know, the inner mental qualities of the mind, is called the welfare of others, welfare of oneself, because, you know, your own inner qualities, you know, I mean, basically they only benefit you directly. But because you have those, then you're going to speak and act in the world, and for that you need to have a physical form that can talk and is visible and all that. So that's why that's called the welfare of others, the form body of the Buddha. So Dharmakaya, Rupakaya. Then so there's the second one, then the third one, the complete accomplishment of the welfare of others in all aspects. So we'll see what extra that means besides the other one, the accomplishment of the 2 welfares. But anyway, what it's saying is, you know, if you can understand how you need exactly these 6, no more, no less, in order to accomplish the welfare of others in all aspects, then you're really going to want to practice the 6 perfections. Then also the 4th one. So there's definitely just these 6, no more, no less, because of the fact that they contain the entire Mahayana. So it's like, so this is saying that in fact, when you practice the 6 perfections, you're practicing the entire Mahayana path. You're practicing it, so that includes the entire Bodhisattva path, Mahayana path. So knowing that, because that's what you want to do, you know, what you really want to do is practice the whole Mahayana path, because that's going to lead you to enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So this is all based on bodhicitta, right? So then you're really going to want to practice the 6 perfections. Then from the point of view of their influencing all aspects of the path or method. So there's the path or method that leads to enlightenment, and by practicing the 6 perfections, all of the other aspects of the path are going to be like it's going to give all of them a boost. So influencing in the sense, maybe in the sense of like making them more powerful, making all of them more powerful. And then in terms of the 3 trainings, so I guess what this is going to be saying is, you know, also if you really want to practice the 3 trainings, by practicing the 6 perfections, you know, that it really gives you everything you need for practicing the 3 trainings. I mean, you know, trainings in morality, concentration, wisdom. So morality is one of the perfections. Then concentration is one of the perfections. Wisdom is one of the perfections. So I don't know about the other 3. But anyway, joyous effort is something you need in everything. and then you need the patience in order to make sure that you don't destroy any good work, that any goodness you've built up in your own mind, merit and so on, by getting angry. So what's that? Generosity. And then generosity, because even if you think about the three trainings, even though three trainings is morality, concentration, and wisdom, it's quite difficult to get the full result just in one short lifetime. So you have to kind of assume that it will take several lifetimes and of practice. And how can you practice when you have no resources? So like no money, no nothing. So you have to spend your whole time just thinking about the next meal kind of thing. How could you keep going with your practice, in other words? So to really practice the three trainings, you need the 6 perfections. That's what it's saying. He's going to go through these one by one, actually. How are we doing? Oh, plenty of time. Good. Okay, so the first one. The number is specified. In other words, the number is fixed from the point of view of or relative to high status. So let's see what that means. To bring the vast conduct of a Bodhisattva to completion, you will need many consecutive lives. And so progress, powerful progress along the path, in them, to progress in them, you need a life totally complete in all excellent characteristics. You need certain conditions. So where it says conduct here, they talk about view, meditation, and conduct, so it's that one. I think it's generally it's to do with the way that you lead your life by following the Bodhisattva path, the Mahayana path. So if you think about, I'm sure everybody's heard about the Bodhisattva. So Bodhisattva Charivatara, Bodhisattva, everybody knows what that is, right? Somebody who has Bodhicitta is a Bodhisattva. Bodhisattva Charya. So the Charya is action or conduct. Sometimes it is translated as conduct, but also it can simply mean action. We think about the Bodhisattva Charya. Okay, so Kriya Tantra, Charya Tantra, action, performance. So it's the same word, actually. I don't know why it's called that, really. But in any case, Japa is conduct, and I think basically what it means is the way you lead your life. And that's why of all the different titles, English titles that they give the Bodhisattva, I still prefer the one that I first came across with Steve Batchelor. I think his was the first, if not then one of the very first translations of the Bodhisattva. So engaging in the Bodhisattva's way of life. So when we talk about the Bodhisattva's conduct, we're talking about the Bodhisattva's way of life. I like that. The 6 perfections, that's your way of life. That's how you're leading your life. So anyway, and that implies that you're always trying to improve yourself. So until you get to a point where you can't improve anymore. So basically that means achieving enlightenment. So to bring your Bodhisattva path, your practice of the Bodhisattva path to completion, you're going to need many consecutive lives. And so progress along them. So anyway, you need a life totally complete in all excellent characteristics. And so he's going to go into what that means a bit. And we know a bit already, don't we? We know about the precious human rebirth, right? What's the main thing you need to be born as a human? Do you remember? Go on then, Shana. You've got to press the right button. Okay.
Yeah. Morality.
Yeah, that's right. That's what they say, isn't it? Is through the practice of morality that you achieve happiness, and happiness in that verse means happiness of being born as a human being or as a god, happiness of a human being or God, right? So, yeah, but I mean, some of you've heard before, so you already know the answer, but just think about it. Do you think that if you want to, when you think of going from life to life, practicing, getting better, is it enough just to be born as a human? It isn't, is it? It's kind of pretty obvious. And you only got to look around the world and you can see there are many, there are many situations which would be just terrible to be in if you want to keep practicing this path, keep involved with the Mahayana. So anyway, we know from the Precious Human Rebirth teaching that you know, it's not, you don't just meditate on how wonderful it is to be a human. That's not just, it's not just that, is it? There's these 18 things. There's these 18 things. And what's the cause of a, so, and we call, we call it, well, the Tibetans call it the leisures and endowments, in other words, which is short for the 8 leisures and the 10 endowments. And so we call it precious human rebirth, usually. So to be born as a human, you need morality. What do you need to be born as a human, with a precious human rebirth? Remember? I bet you remember, but you're just a bit shy of saying. 3 causes, right? 3 main causes they talk about. 3 causes. Sutu Namadampe, Shizum. Pure morality is one of that. Pure morality. So with the pure morality, what are you going to get? You're going to get birth as a human being or as God, right? Then that needs to be accompanied by the practice of the 6 perfections, right? Jinso Parada Jimbe, Jimbatuki, Drogche or something like that. Okay, so I'm sure you've thought about why you would want to practice the 6 perfections in order to make sure you don't just have a human birth, but as one which is going to be mean that it's possible for you to keep practicing. So morality, yeah.
You would need generosity for wealth and patience for, a pleasing body, I guess, so that you would be able to practice. Those are the ones that I remembered.
So we've got the generosity, morality, and the patience. So then what comes next after patience?
Concentration, joyous effort.
Joyous effort, isn't it? The next one.
Yeah.
And just offhand, why would you think you need the joyous effort?
Going. So you keep going and not like slide back.
Yeah, I think so. And it's got several aspects to it, hasn't it? Sort of features. So thing is the joyous effort it counteracts what? Can you remember? What does it counteract?
Laziness.
Yeah. And what are the different kinds of laziness?
I think when you're concentrating, it's like laxness, like it being too loose, like kind of not focused, and then
Okay.
overexcitation.
You definitely need the joyous effort in developing concentration, because there are these five, they talk about these five major obstacles to being able to develop calm abiding. And the first one is laziness. And in fact, they have, isn't it, laziness? And then there's several ways to deal with that. But anyway, the point is that what the point I'm trying to get at here is, with the laziness, there's one type of laziness which is just you just can't be bothered, basically. I think they call it the laziness of indolence. You just can't be bothered. They say for a lazy person it's even difficult to get a cup of coffee, because you have to get up out of your seat to make it. Yeah, so there's the kind of laziness of being more interested in just having a good time, basically, you know, watching various shows on the internet and or movies, going out drinking, and or I was just about to say surfing, sorry. But anyway, you know what I mean. uh, just going out and enjoying yourself, you know, and like not wanting to study, not wanting to meditate. So anyway, so the joyous effort is the one that understands, wow, if I do this, it's going to be so good. It's going to be fantastic. I really want to do this. So in other words, really, you know, it's all very well to talk about morality and generosity and patience, but if you don't have the joyous effort, you're not going to do any of those, because you're just not going to really feel interested in them. Anyway, so joyous effort, and then the concentration. Why do we need concentration in order to have a precious human rebirth? I mean, the thing is, one reason must be, without concentration, your mind is kind of like going here, there, and everywhere. It's very close to mindfulness, isn't it? So a person who doesn't have mindfulness, they forget. It's, you know, they forget things. This is something I know very well. You forget, and then you just don't do it, and that can have really quite difficult results just in worldly things, for sure, but not just in worldly things, also in in our practice. So they talk about forgetting the object of the meditation, which means your mind becoming distracted, but also like Lama Zopa often used to say, you know, mindfulness itself, you know, isn't the main point, because even burglars have to be mindful, because you have to be very careful not to make a noise. Maybe you got to remember to break into the right house. You get mixed up about which number it was, going to the wrong house. Anyway, that kind of thing. So yeah, you need concentration. We need concentration. So you need concentration in order to be able to effectively do the practices, create the cause to have a human, good human life after this one. But also, you know, the thing about all six of these is, you know how it works with karma, right? That one of the results of karma, whether you're talking about positive karma or negative karma, is that you're creating the cause to be attracted to doing that action again in the future. So by practicing any of the six perfections, we're creating the cause to want to do that kind of practice in the future. If you don't have that want, then why would you do it? So, you know, you have that, you're drawn to it, you're attracted to it. They usually just say, you know, like, to like it, you know, you like doing it. So if you like doing it, then you're going to do it. That's the idea, isn't it? And then the wisdom, I mean, you know, on a more basic level, the wisdom understanding the difference between right and wrong. And, you know, for the most part, we learn that from, you know, from parents, from teachers and so on. But then also to a degree, there's sort of like, I don't know, something there from previous lives as well, where you do something, you feel uncomfortable about doing certain things because it just doesn't feel right, or if you do it, you feel bad about it and so on. So, but then also, of course, the, you know, wisdom, understanding the impermanent nature of things, understanding, especially, you know, understanding the ultimate reality. Okay, so we know that just from that teaching then on the precious human rebirth, that we do need the 6 perfections in order to get a human life, not just a human life, but, you know, one with all the qualities that you need in order to be able to keep progressing on this path. And then yeah, so it's amazing, isn't it? Because, you know, practice the 6 perfections in this life means that you're going to be drawn towards practicing them in the future life. So you're going to be, and you've, having practiced the 6 perfections, you've got everything, all the conditions to be able to practice them again. So you practice them again, and you're going to create, make those imprints, you know, stronger and stronger and deeper all the time. So you can see how things can, you know, get better and better. Yeah. So then the 3rd cause, you remember, for the precious human rebirth, the basis, pure morality, then the 6 perfections, usually say accompanied by, I know, so I guess the pure morality accompanied by the whole of the 6 perfections. Then the 3rd cause, you remember that one? To do with dedication, isn't it? So that all needs to be connected with stainless prayers. And so my understanding of that is dedicating as you're going along, so it doesn't get destroyed by anger and wrong view, dedicating selflessly, in other words, without selfishness, dedicating all of that to Bodhisattva for everybody, you know, Bodhisattva for the sake of all sentient beings, you know, like with the Junction Essential prayer. May all sentient beings who have not yet got bodhicitta, may they generate bodhicitta. Those who already have it, may it never decline and always improve more and more. So dedication. So anyways, so I'm not quite sure why we're talking about that. Must be something to do with this. So let's start again this paragraph. To bring the vast conduct of a Bodhisattva to completion, you will need many consecutive lives, and to progress along the path in them, you need a life totally complete in all excellent characteristics. So there may be more to it, but I think for sure, you know, complete in all excellent characteristics means having the precious human rebirth. Without it, even if you don't have, even if you don't have such a life, right? Without it, even if you practice with something that merely has some excellent aspects like our current life, there will be no progress whatsoever. I don't really know what he's saying there, unless it's to say that, you know, if you just get, if the next life is not an improvement on this one, then, you know, how do you improve? So there will be no progress. How can you progress? I'm not sure about that. So thus, a life that is excellent in all its aspects is necessary. To elaborate, You need a life that is endowed with the 4 excellences. So here, instead of talking about the 18 qualities, the eight leisures and 10 endowments, he talks about these 4 things. Maybe just to simplify and to start off the idea. So wealth at your disposal. So we know what you're going to have to do to get the wealth, right? Resources, generosity. We've already just said that, right? Then a body with which to practice. I mean, that's on one level, that sounds quite funny, but in other words, the right kind of life. In other words, a human life. So you need to have a human life. So you need to have the wealth, but you don't want to be like a dog, bless them. You want to be a human. Then companions with whom to practice. It says here kor, which sometimes means retinue, like in the retinue of a king or the students of a lama and so on, but it's the people around you. It could be companions, but the people around you, the people that you're sort of like living your life amongst, whether it's the people you're working with, family, friends, neighbors, and so on. There are certain people. So this is a point that Gishi Jambikatsu makes. When the people you spend your time with are bad people, there's a great risk that you're going to become bad. And if the people that you spend your time with, whether it's working with or socializing with and so on, when they're good people, then you tend to become good. So there's that story, isn't there, from earlier on in the Lamrim teachings of the 2 people from some distant place in Tibet going to Lhasa. So one of them is a teetotaler and one is a bit of a, bit of a miscreant, or I don't know. No, maybe a bit of a drinker anyway. Teetotaler versus a drinker, that kind of thing. So they get to Lhasa and the teetotaler ends up with a bad crowd, and so ends up being quite bad and becoming a bit of a drunk. And then the one who's the drinker, the bad guy, he meets up with some good people, and their good qualities rub off on him, and he becomes really good. So there's that story, and you can imagine that it could happen, right? I mean, we can't help it. We're influenced by the people that we the people around us. Quite often, I'm thinking, when the people that you're surrounded with are bad people, that you might have the strength of mind to recognize, this is not good, but it'll probably wear you down eventually. Yeah. Yeah. So you need good companions, okay, with whom to practice. And then the 4th thing is you need the ability to complete the actions you undertake. The ability to complete the actions you undertake. Well, he's going to go into that a bit here anyway. So I think we better stop there. Okay. Okay, everybody. So what did we do? We finished off looking at the sutra teaching the Tathagata's inconceivable secret, and we got all hopefully a little bit less puzzled by this whole idea of destroying objects and not destroying objects and so on. But anyway, now we're getting into the 6 perfections and why there are particularly 6 perfections. So there are these 6 points of view from which you need to have 6, and for the first one, the high status, then we've looked at these 4 things you need, life after life. And then Lama Tsongkhapa is going to explain why you need each of them, and we'll try to look at them in terms of the 6 perfections as well. He's not like totally clear about how all this is connected with the 6 perfections, but we'll be able to work that out, I think. Okay. So, we have some indication, please? All right, it's there. I spaced out a bit. May the precious supreme bodhicitta not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. Yeah, we can do this. Due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, and all the merits of the 3 times collected by numberless Buddhas and numberless sentient beings, may bodhicitta be generated in the hearts of all the sentient beings of 6 realms, and especially in the hearts of everybody in this world, including all the students, benefactors, and volunteers in the FPMT organization, especially Land of Medicine Buddha. May it be generated in the hearts of all those who rely upon me, all those for whom I've promised to pray, and all those whose names have been given to me. May it be generated in my heart and in the hearts of all my family members, those who are living and those who have died. May the bodhicitta that has already been generated increase. Then the incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, may you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. I fully dedicate all these virtues to be able to train just like the hero Manjushri, who knows reality, and just like Samantabhadra as well. I fully dedicate all my roots of virtue with the dedication praised as the best by all the gone beyond victorious ones of the 3 times in order to have good conduct. Due to this one and the next one, and we can finish, I think, with the screen. Due to this virtue, may I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all transmigratory beings without exception to that state. Due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, the numberless Buddhas and the numberless sentient beings which are completely empty of existing from their own side, may I, who am completely empty of existing from my own side, achieve the state of full enlightenment which is completely empty of existing from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side to that state which is completely empty of existing from its own side, by myself alone, who am completely empty of existing from my own side. So also dedicate, well, we dedicate it for long life as wholeness, also for all his holy wishes to be fulfilled, and then also very especially for the quick return of Lama Zopa. So apparently he's already there in Nepal. But whether he's found sooner or later, anyway, for everything to go according to plan in his life and for him to continue his work that he was doing in the previous life, guiding us, guiding sentient beings. Okay. See you all next week, I hope.